I grew up extremely shy and still am today an introvert. I mean, you could probably see if you flash 5 or 6 minutes back to the beginning of this interview, like I started off nervous. I feel very comfortable now, but my default state is one of shyness, reservedness, and nervousness. And so that was just how I was for the long time. And when it came time to graduate high school, they have these superlatives that they would give out. And I had a class of about 500 people. And my superlative was most likely to break out of his shell in college. So I was well known, but I was well known for not saying a lot. So people like didn't know me and then voted for me as the person who one day would show up and reveal themselves to the world, I suppose. That didn't happen. I didn't break out of my shell in college at all. I continued to do the same. I had a small group of friends. I wasn't like dating or anything like that. And then it was only when I was about 19 years old that I studied abroad and had gotten so sick of the experience for me at that time in my life of having a massive crush for usually a year, forming a entire relationship in my head that we would one day have, and then having that not materialize because they weren't interested, or if they were interested, I could quickly talk them out of being interested just by my general awkwardness. That had happened so many times that I was done with it and frustrated. So when I went abroad, I made it a mission to figure out what was going on and shift it. And it was actually very helpful. And when people ask me, how do you begin to change these things in yourself? Shifting your environment is so impactful. Probably one of the most impactful things, because what you don't realize is that your friends and family who love you very much tend to not like shifts that you make to your habits, particularly the way that you socialize with other people. But when I gave myself the freedom of being abroad, I tried everything. You know, I worked on my eye contact. I read every book and would just run little personal experiments, some of which didn't go well. There was one period of time I remember where the experiment was big eyes. And so I would like walk around and be like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. And you immediately recoil your head. I swear I did that probably for a week until somebody said, dude, what are you doing with your eyes? Stop.
Really?
Yeah, he was a good friend. I appreciate him for that. But it was just mini experiments. And I started them while I was studying abroad, and I continued when I came back. But by the time that I did come back 6 months or a year later, the word in the college campus was like, what happened to you? You are a completely different person. You are outgoing and you seem capable of talking, particularly to women at this case. And then friends were all of a sudden asking me, what should I do? And so that started sort of a second phase of my life where this was the primary focus day to day, you know, after like eating, drinking, and maybe getting some money in order to pay my bills, other people, how to influence them, how to interact with them, how to get better friendships, how to talk my way into a job, you know, all of those sorts of things became the primary focus for me.
Just to spend a second going back to what your sort of internal monologue was like through the awkward years of your life. How did you feel and what did you think of yourself? Like, if I'd asked you, what do you think of yourself back then, and you were to answer it honestly, what would you say?
Honestly, which I couldn't have done, but I will tell you, ashamed would have been what I would have said. And I didn't know this about myself, but like I didn't have the right to speak up. People wouldn't have liked it. I remember I had one guy, and it didn't even bother me because I suppose it connected with how I felt. But he said, Charlie, you're so normal that you're invisible. And I think that was by design. Like blending in became a way to be unseen and a way to be safe. And I wasn't picked on. You know, like all of those things never happened just because I was there, but not in a way that was noticeable. The problem with that is, yeah, you're safe, you don't get picked on, nothing happens, but also nothing happens, right? You're not making new friends, you're not forming connections. Other people were forming new groups and expanding, and I was not. So there was a huge disconnect between how I felt in a more public setting and how I felt in more intimate, private settings.
And did you look at some other people who didn't seem to have those challenges as, I don't know, biologically gifted?
Yeah, freaks of nature.
Is that what you thought?
Oh yeah, totally. There was clearly, the thought that something could shift in me to get me to have a different response didn't occur until I was 18 or 19 years old. And I think that's a really important shift for a lot of people, is where you start recognizing that it's on you. It's your responsibility. And the way that I put it at the time was, it's always my fault. So what I carried from 19 to say 28 or 29 was, if this interaction with you and I or anyone doesn't go well, there's something that I could have done differently in order to make it go well. And so that gave me this fuel to constantly adjust because I was going, okay, that one didn't go great. What could I have done? Where did it break down? It was 3 minutes into conversation, but I felt they sort of dropped off when I started answering that question about my boring job in a really boring way. So let me in this next interaction talk about my job in a way that is a bit more exciting. And so I was really spending a lot of time obsessively reviewing and talking with my co-founder and best friend at the time, like what happened, where did it break down, what could we try differently, and then running these experiments. It was genuinely an obsession and a thrilling one at that.
What was the difference between the guy who went on holiday that day on the plane versus the guy that came back in terms of skills or knowledge? What was the actual difference in the person?
A willingness to stick your neck out there was the big thing. So one of the primary things that I did when I went abroad was ask questions that I otherwise would have kept to myself. So I was in a town, a small town in Costa Rica called Heredia. And I showed up, I don't speak Spanish, right? So there's even more reason to, oh my gosh, I could make a mistake and it could go really bad and I could be bumbling. But I made a rule that I was gonna ask, if I didn't know where my classroom was, I wasn't gonna like sit with my piece of paper and try to work it out on the map. I was going to ask a human. And when it came time to figure out where there was a good restaurant or a good place to go out at night, I was always going to ask someone. And thanks to that habit, as well as the friendliness of Latin people, that extended my comfort zone and gave me a number of experiences of you put yourself out there, something magical happens. So that is the easiest tip that I can give is one more sentence. So when people ask me, like, what is something that I could do to work on my charisma? I would say, you have dozens of interaction in a day if you're in any sort of populated area. You have an interaction with the Uber driver, you have an interaction with the person behind the counter, you have an interaction with the person who you get into an elevator with. And there's usually a prescribed amount of social interaction that you have. Maybe it's hey, maybe it's even less than hey. The advice that I give to people is if you want to get started, one more sentence. One more sentence than usual. So as you get into the elevator and the normal sentence is, what floor? Anything in addition to that. What floor are you in? Oh, have you lived in this building for a long time? You know, and all of a sudden you get to know your neighbors because the person that is just the elevator person who you're putting them on floor 3 now has a name. And every time it sort of compounds and expands and you get to have a wider social circle. So that's just one piece of the things that I would work on, which is one more sentence with people. But there's plenty more, and I'm happy to dive into first impressions and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so first impressions.
Yeah. The big thing that I got wrong, and I see almost everybody get wrong, and it's bad common advice about first impressions, is that just the best way to get people interested in you is to be interested in them. And what I found is that is generally true, but it ignores the realities of status, which is, I'm sure you experience this, but a lot of people come up to you, they're very interested in you, but that doesn't mean that they're gonna make a good first impression on you. It means that you might have compassion for them. It might even mean that you might feel love for them, but it does not mean that you're gonna wanna follow up and spend time with them. Probably you've experienced, I don't wanna follow up with this person and spend time with them, even though I see their sincerity of their interest.
No comment.
and I've been on both sides of this, right? I've been the person who is just so interested in you. There's a few things that if you just do this before expressing your interest in somebody, changes the whole game. So fun, trust, respect. If you, and this can take 60 seconds or less, can communicate that you are fun, that the person can trust you, and that there is something to respect about you, and then you express your interest in that person, it will completely flip the dynamic on its head. So we can break it down.
Please.
Fun. There's a ton of ways to handle this, right? You can crack jokes, you can do all sorts of things, but the easiest way to add fun to an interaction is you take the first question that almost everybody asks you, which is, how are you, right? These are the gimmies that we just say, fine, good, how are you? Oh, there's a fire, whatever. And be more enthusiastic than fine. I would always say be better than good. So if somebody comes up to you and they say, how are you doing? You can be fantastic or wonderful or great or ecstatic or electric. And there's a whole separate conversation about how to make this real inside of yourself, because I'm not asking you to paper over anything. I think that was a mistake that I made early in my charisma career of just too much fake it till you make it. But if you can genuinely cultivate those feelings and share them, that level of enthusiasm is fun. Crack a joke, you got fun.
Okay.
Trust. This is a lot of nonverbal stuff, eye contact, body language, the way that you shake someone's hand. But it also comes down to if the person feels like you are trying to get something from them. And there's a number of things that tip us off to this, but one of these is when you over-qualify yourself, which is in direct competition with this need to establish yourself, right? So there's these, we want to establish that we're interesting people, we have things going on that you might want to connect with, but if we drift over into name dropping and selling, we're going to alienate the trust. So the place that I focus most on with people is, in most places that I've been, how are you, where are you from, what do you do, are like 3 of the most basic questions. Go to a college campus, it's what's your major? We all have these, and you can think of them now if you're in the audience. We have these things that we hear all the time, and we probably have habitual answers to them.
Yes.
And these habitual answers are usually not great.
Yes, mine is so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remembered mine actually. People come up to me and they say, God, you've been so busy. And then I'll say something like, yeah, always. And then the conversation's over.
Yeah. They've got nothing to hook into or hook onto there. So you're able to get away with that. And one of the things that people do is they build a tremendous amount of competence and power. And then all of a sudden you can drop this to a degree because people are still interested because they know you from Dragon's Den or some other things.
Yeah.
But if you're out there and you don't have that yet, like I didn't when I was 19 and 20, or you just want to have more engaging conversations and you want to bring in people that you genuinely connect with, reverse engineer the conversation that you would like to have. So I have 6 charismatic mindsets that I think about. One of them is go there first in humanizing the interaction. And so this can mean if you're in a group of people that are all really stiff and nervous because they don't know if it's okay, crack the first joke, be vulnerable first, give the first compliment, like lead the interaction in the way you want to go because that's what everybody wants. Like we don't want to be suits. We don't want to be roles in a company. We want to be humans. And that stuff is, everybody wants that. And whoever goes first becomes the leader.
Okay.
So in your interactions, you're getting asked, are you busy? So if you could go there first and do the thing that you're wanting them to do and work that into the answer of how you're busy, or are you busy? That is going to lead the conversation in the direction you want. So as a for instance, I don't know if this is, are you busy? I have been, but one of the things that I've really been struggling with that I haven't figured out yet at this point is, I'm having some relationship issues, or I'm having this or that and the other thing, but like sharing the real thing a level down beneath the surface level stuff that you're tempted to share with people is going there first and making it okay for them to do it. And then you say, what about you? Versus they say, hey, how's it going? You're so busy. You say, oh yeah, man, been busy. How about you? They're just gonna match you. Especially given your power as the leader of the company, they will just match what you do. But if you go there first, you give people permission to go deeper. So a lot of people, for instance, what they might want is the thing that they care about is they care about their job, they love what they do and they're really interested, or maybe they hate their job and they care more about their free time and their hobbies and the extreme sports that they do. So in these questions of how have you been, what do you do, where are you from, I have a worksheet in our course that helps people walk through what a good answer could be that would leave hooks for the person that is an extreme sports enthusiast or does, have an interest in that particular niche that they're interested in to hook into. But if you were to ask me where I'm from, and let's say that I want to connect with you in a number of different ways, but the thing that I really want you to know is that I have an interesting business. I could say I'm from Philadelphia. And we're done. Oh, cool, I've been to Philadelphia. Or no, my friend's brother went there. Is it cold in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
Like this is where we're gonna go. Now we're on weather and sports, which is where most conversations go. But if I say, I grew up in Philadelphia, but I never really fit in there. Like a lot of the people in that area wind up spending their whole lives within 20 minutes of where they were born. And so I traveled throughout my 20s and lived a bunch of places, but I now live in LA just because it's the right place for my business. And I end there. The next question that is coming from you is probably, oh, what's your business? Or where did you travel? So if I give you a number of different options to hook into here, you're gonna take the one that you're most interested in. And so what I would try to do in these answers with myself and what I advise people to do is to take the 3 topics that you'd love to talk about. Like you'd love to talk about your travels, you'd love to talk about your business, and you'd love to talk about philosophy or whatever it is. And find a way to just leave little crumbs in these common answers that give the right person the invitation to talk to you about that thing. And this is something that I found really small talk can suck. It's very draining to sit here and like, how much more can I say about the weather or local sports team? I can't keep doing it.
Yeah.
But when you do these sorts of things, it opens up the opportunity for connection so much more quickly in interaction. And
I hate small talk.
yeah.
I really hate it. I find it really draining. I find it so fake. And I kind of want to get on to the real stuff. So you're saying that's how to do it, to leave sort of crumbs in my response that will send us down a more interesting pathway in conversation.
To really think through how do I and what do I want to connect with people over, right? It's not the weather and it's not the local sports team. It is, in my case, I want to interact with people that are interested in the same sort of like YouTube space that I'm interested in. That's one of the things. Beforehand, I thought that I knew about people. I was like, I could tell who that guy is. I know what kind of life he has. But when you start leaving these clues, people surprise you. The types of connections that come from people that you wouldn't expect are, I don't know another word other than like magical. It's very special to see that the world is full of opportunities where once you saw it as, I already know what's coming from this person. It's just going to be a boring small talk conversation. And to find that that person could be someone that you do business with or become very close to or winds up being the brother of someone that you date is very exciting to me.
There's a real mindset shift in that, like seeing the world differently as a set of opportunities versus this sort of like fixed thing that you just have to navigate.
Yes. And also there's a playfulness that can be brought to it as well. So one of the other things that I talk about is flirting with the world, right? So what I mean by this is that when you go out and you're flirting, you tend not to be literal in your answers, right? There's a playfulness that is engaged. You're going to joke with that person. And what a lot of people do, and I'm guilty of this all the time, is when you're checking out at the store, you're doing anything, you are very literal in your answers. Can I help you with anything today? Can I get one other thing? What floor are you on as you get in the elevator? And if instead of I'm on floor 3, you say, oh, I don't live here, I'm just casing the joint for robbery. It's just like that little stuff that is playful, that is what people are dying for. There's so many people are on autopilot. And when you bring that playfulness, that little flirtatious energy to men, women alike, things open up in a very fun and exciting way.
Does that come from confidence? Because I've noticed that I'd certainly flirt with the world more now that I feel like I have a greater sense of confidence that I didn't have when I was 18 to 25.
Yeah, I think it's a circle. I think it absolutely comes from confidence. When you feel good, you bring that playful energy to the world. And I learned to develop confidence there was a time of faking it till I made it, where I wasn't comfortable, but I had this rule in my head. I'm in the elevator. I have to say the thing right now. That's what I did. And then the interaction went well. And now I'm building these reps of good experiences where I'm seeing that my belief about the world is this place that I just had to make it through is not true. There's fun opportunities everywhere.
I really want to make sure I've got everything on this first impressions point as well. Is there anything else that I need to be aware of? You talked about nonverbal cues. And I mean, there's so much information out there that says nonverbal cues are everything, that then maybe nothing. Do you think they matter? And what are the most important nonverbal cues when it comes to making a good first impression?
One of the ones that I see is prey versus predator. Prey versus predator movement and prey versus predator gesticulation. So if you think of an animal that is a prey animal, like a little bird or a little rabbit, they're very like herky-jerky and they dart. And you think of a predator, you think of a lion or like this like sort of languid, slow movement. Now you don't have to dial it up to sleepy lion level, but one of the things that you see with people that feel very afraid is that they dart. Their eyes are very darty. The hand goes in, the hand goes out, goes back into the pockets very quickly. A bit of slowness to your movements, a bit of calm, especially if you're an anxious person, can help a lot. That doesn't mean you need to lower the energy, but it just means you can slow things down a bit. The other thing that I find is, this is almost pre-first impression. If you're out at a social event, right? You're at a networking event, you're at a bar, I think a lot of people do not realize the intuitive sense that others have for what is going on around them in interactions they're not directly in. And so what will happen, and this is connected to the prey thing but not identical, is that people go out to a networking event and they feel very uncomfortable in their own shoes. And so they're looking at their phone or they're standing by the bar and they're sort of looking around for something or someone to rescue them from their loneliness. And when you can shift that to, I am going to be comfortable where I am, I'm going to find one person. My friend and I would go out to the bar, and the rule that we had was the most interesting place in this entire bar is the space between our noses, right? It doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want. You could be like, I'm terrified here. I'm so scared. I wish I could go home right now. But we have to engage with one another. It was remarkable how much easier it was to start conversation when it was started from a place of we're enjoying one another's company and being playful and having a good time here versus two of us just sort of like standing at the bar going like this.
Looking around for attention or for...
So those are two things. One, prey versus predator movements. And two, are you exuding this vibe of I don't have it, somebody else does? Okay. That people have a unconscious sense that is happening around them. And so making it a conscious point to, I'm going to be cool in my own space. When I interact with someone, I'm not going to make them a stepping stone to another person that I'm more secretly attracted to or has the job that I want. I'm with this person now, and then I can move on. That had a huge, huge impact on the ability. Like, first impressions became easier because of the pre-first impression.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so much I wanted to dig into there. On the prey versus predator thing, what is it about slow movements that make someone appear to be higher status? Because as you said it, I immediately thought of the lion, and then you were talking about some little like rodent that's kind of like darting around and is anxious that it's about to be eaten. And then I thought of the lion, which is kind of just slowly moving. And then I thought of business contexts where you've got the leader in the room who is kind of sat back in their chair, they're doing things in a more considered way, and maybe the intern who's like dropping the paper and like like hitting the glass accidentally. And it's so interesting because it's so true.
Yeah, it's safety.
Safety.
It's safety. I mean, prey animals are hunted, and that's why you have to be head on a swivel. If you're a prey animal, you want to move slow, you're dead. It's over. We're animals that are highly attuned to social status. And so when we feel low on the totem pole, we feel less safe. And so one of the ways that we exhibit that is we move more quickly. We have our head on a swivel. We have to be aware of everything that is going on. We can't take our time because we don't, at some level, that mammalian or reptilian brain is telling us that we are unsafe in this environment, or at least less safe than the leader who feels very slow. Another thing that you'll see in terms of status and people who feel is the ability to be seen looking at others. And so one of the things that happens, and this is, I don't mean, I can explain how this doesn't contradict the point about focusing on someone else, but when you do turn your attention to someone else, what you'll see the guy at the bar who feels uncomfortable or the intern do is they'll often look with their eyes, but not with the rest of their body. They're doing this sort of stuff because they're afraid to be seen looking. But when you take the person who is more comfortable, they will turn their head and sometimes their chest and their whole body towards others, and they can be caught looking because they're not threatening that other person. They're not harming them. They're not, they're comfortable versus there's a fear of if they see me looking, I'm in trouble, right? And so these are little, I wouldn't say that you need to spend all your time focusing on these hacks, but they work both ways. So it's one thing to notice that, but if you actually consciously go to the body, I think this is one of the fastest ways to influence how you feel, like state in the moment. Instead of doing this and the prey darting and the sitting with the hands in the pockets, right? That creates a loop of feeling uncomfortable. So one of the first things that I would do when I was going out to a networking event or a bar or anywhere where I felt uncomfortable was dance floor. Because on the dance floor, I can go, and open up and feel more comfortable through my body because I'm signaling to my body as I expand my arms and dance and wave them that I'm safe, right? And so it's a two-way loop. So if you notice yourself at a networking event or a bar or anywhere where you're feeling uncomfortable and you notice that you're doing this and you can say, okay, I can't go to my brain and make these anxiety go away up here, but I can choose how I hold myself. This is the Jordan Peterson stand up straight, right? There's this body loop feedback that we get. And if you do it by opening up your body language, revealing your vulnerable spots, which are the parts that you have veins, it's your neck, it's your inner elbow, it's your hands, right? Standing like this, a little bit more open. That tends, and I can feel it now. I don't know why I didn't do it at the beginning. I'm a little bit rusty, geez. I feel immediately more grounded, right? I feel immediately more safe, comfortable, and like I can take my time in this interaction rather than having to get the answer right for you, right for the audience, like I might have when I was going like this.
I was going to say before you pointed that out that it's really self-fulfilling. Like the intern who's on edge, who's dropping the paper, is then going to make certain behaviors which are going to kind of reinforce their insecurity and low status, which is then might be pointed out. They might notice it themselves, which makes them feel shit again, which makes them more on edge and twitchy, which is going to increase the probability that they conduct some kind of behavior, and it's this downward spiral where you're like, you feel stuck at the bottom of that. And you're saying that by influencing the things you've described, moving a bit slower, being expansive with your body, you can start to trigger the loop from the other way. You can start to make yourself feel safe. If you feel safe, you're more likely to do the higher value things, which make you feel safe, and you spiral upwards potentially.
Yes. Yeah. This is not an insight unique to me. Tony Robbins, when at his events, I don't know if you've gone, they talk about incantations, where one of the things that he does is prior to going on stage, and he advises people to do this before they have a big moment, is he will like bang his chest and go, hoo, 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 in his Tony Robbins way. And he'll have oftentimes a phrase that is like, I'm here to inspire, or like, I love myself, or I feel wonderful. And I would do this before I went out, right? Before I got in the taxi, before I went anywhere, I would go, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. And I would just build this physical body energy connection. And it's real. It happens. It makes a dramatic impact on how you show up, because oftentimes you only get 30 seconds, right? It's not a lot of time when you're sitting down in that interview before the person starts to form an opinion about you. So going in with that energy that is like, look, I approve of me, and I'm going to have the body language communication that tells you that that's how I feel. People often pick up on that. You can think of interactions as two people who are storms of beliefs encountering one another. And if my storm of belief is, I'm not really sure about this, I don't really think I deserve this job, and you probably shouldn't talk to me. And your storm of belief is, I don't know a lot about this guy, but let's find out. I'm going to win. And you're going to pick that up, and you're going to, I don't think this guy deserves the job, whatever. But if the belief is, I deserve to be here, I love myself, I can be comfortable, I can be human, and I'll be okay if this doesn't go the way that I'd like, that's what wins out in these. It is the higher conviction belief that often bleeds through in interaction and becomes the one that defines that relationship, at least for that limited time in that context.
It's funny because I think about my nonverbal cues all the time. I meet so many people in so many different contexts, and a lot of the time I'm like tired, and my head has a million tabs open. So I try and influence like how I'm showing up with like my body language and eye contact. And outside of the things we've discussed, is there anything else that you think I can do to try and leave? I don't want to be rude. That's what I don't want to be. I was going to say I want to be warm, but there's something, I want to be myself, and I don't want to be rude, accidentally rude.
So you worry that you might come across
sometimes,
as accidentally rude?
Yeah, because I don't know, you meet people, like my assistant Sophie, she walked in here now, hiya! She's just got like that like 24/7 energy, and I ain't got that.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. And I'm not gonna fake it. And I've never been good at faking it. But is there anything else that I could accidentally be making people dislike me just with small things?
No, I can say the areas where I've felt most connected to you, which is I think the opposite of rude. Rude is like, I'm not interested in you as a person. The areas where I've felt most connected to you is where one of us, again, went there first and like said the thing that was real. It's the moments where you stop, neither of us is trying to perform at all for the camera, and there's still a sense of the audience is there, but yeah, that's where I feel any rudeness just, no, gone.
Interesting. And when you say that, I think about like everyday interactions. And is there ever a situation where like going there first is a little bit too strong? Try
it. That's what I would say. So the thought is the one that you have, everyone has, right? It's no, I can't. Because if they didn't have that thought, they would have already done it, right? I will tell you a brief story that my brother reminded me of today as we were driving in. I was like, I need my charisma stories. And he said, you can tell the one about me. So
your brother who's in the green room?
Yeah.
Okay.
We went to a networking event, and for whatever reason that day, I was just in this zone of I'm going to be a professional because this is a networking event, and the channel wasn't established at this point, and he came with me. And so I'm going in there, and I'm going through the line. I'm filling out my card. What's your name? Charlie. What do you do? Okay, I'm getting my information. I put my badge on. I walk through, and he goes behind me, and they say, what's your name? He says, Dragon. And she says, excuse me? I said, no, write Dragon on the card. It's going to be great. And so he then starts a conversation with her, and they're like just being playful. And then he puts dragon on his chest, and I'm going in trying to impress people with my professionalism. And people are like, "What's up?" He's like, "Dragon here," and he was a hit. Right? He didn't have anything to do with the networking event. He didn't have anything to do with the context of why people were there. But the interest that he got was so much immediately more than I was getting, being the one that actually had the business that was somewhat related to the thing. And so even I believe that these rules on how we should engage are set in stone. And what I think few people have done, if you think of your entire life, you're either hitting it perfect, undershooting, or overshooting. Everyone's fears of overshooting, but they spend almost all of their lives undershooting.
Overshooting is in coming on too strong.
Yeah, and that it's okay, but like there's type 1 and type 2 errors, right? And if there's a perfect middle ground of like, wow, like that was a trauma dump on that person would be an overshare, or like, ooh, I maybe shouldn't crack that joke at a funeral would be going there first type of a thing. We have less than a dozen of those usually in our life, and we have hundreds and thousands of undershooting. So what I'm encouraging people to do is take the risk of the overshoot, because you're already missing. Like you're under what is available to you in terms of the potential to create connections. And the question here is, which I think informs all of this, is your goal to blend in, get through, and not make a splash? Or is your goal, what is your goal? And for me, it's like, I want to connect. I want to connect with the people that would most connect with me. And in order to do that, I have to be willing to be seen.
Okay, so on the other end of this, what are the mistakes people make that cause disconnection? Talking about yourself, is that?
I don't think so. In what sense?
So like if you walk into a room and you immediately start talking about yourself, is that going to be, if you're over talking?
Good question. It's about, do people have opt-in points? So are you stopping and giving the person a chance to re-opt into that line of communication? So this is, again, one of the things we work on those initial questions is, okay, you want to share your values early in the interaction, but am I just going to give you my life story, right? I'm not giving someone a chance to opt in. But if I make it 3 to 5 sentences and I say, I grew up on the West Coast, and it was perfect because there was surf everywhere. And then I met my wife, but she's super close to her family, and I just wanted to be a family man. So now I live in the middle of the country, and whatever. You give like 3 hooks that people can hook into, and then you're done. That's fine. But some people don't give a chance for anyone to step in and get a word in edgewise. So that's another piece that I think.
And I could also ask them, right, if they surf or something.
Yes, exactly. But also, you will see that sometimes early in an interaction, if you indicate these points of, like, people will often comment on what you have to say. You don't need to ask them necessarily. Like if you give that thing that they like, you often don't have to, like, they will jump in with the thing that connects to it.
So interesting. Throughout this conversation, you've repeatedly made reference to the fact that connection happens at a deeper level, but also the paradox is that we don't walk around offering the deeper level. Which is what I've always figured out and like found out on this podcast is the deeper the conversation, the more I feel like connected to the person.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really interesting. I was just thinking about interactions that I've even had today, and like the person that I spoke to in the gym, what I've rolled up to them and what could I have said to them that would have been got us past the fluffy small talk. Because I met someone in the gym that I've known loosely known.
Yeah.
And it was one of those interactions where they go, hey, how are you? You're in LA now? Hey, yeah. Where are you going to live? I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then like, so yeah, fires. Are you okay? Yeah. And I just.
So let's do this. Where are you going to live? I think I even probably asked you, or
everyone's asking me because I posted on Instagram.
Yeah. Take a person in the gym. You don't know anything about them. And I know context, it's going to be dependent on what you want to learn about them. What types of things do you wish you could connect over more? And I know there's this sense of like whatever they want, but like you clearly care about business. You clearly care, like what opportunities do you want to open up for yourself? Do you want to find a surf buddy? Do you want to find what is it?
Yeah, so in that particular conversation, I think because I'm kind of new here, maybe what I would have been interested in is I actually really wanted to know something about their professional life that they told me about previously. But also, I'm like looking for friends here.
Yeah.
Cool things to do, people to see, new networks.
Amazing. You got it. So it's, Where are you going to live? Be like, honestly, I'm not sure. I'm looking for cool places to live, cool places to go, new networks of people. What do you
I
like?
should have fucking said
Yeah,
that.
and it's so I think it's what we mentioned earlier. But the thing that happens is that people try to get through rather than connect. And I think
Interesting.
that informs a lot of the questions that people have. They say, yeah, but couldn't it go wrong? It's like, yes, it could, but you have to consider that not connecting is also it going wrong. Like the number of chances that you meet to connect with your potential spouse, a potential incredible friend. I don't want to be nightmarish or scary for people, but like the amount of incredible people that have walked in and out of all of our lives is saddening, right?
It is, yeah.
Because we didn't say the thing, and it's like, oh my gosh, you guys would have connected so well if just one of you could have like put it out there, the thing that you were interested in. But it just doesn't happen 99% of the time.
There's a certain individual listening right now who really wants to connect. In fact, they feel so disconnected and so lonely in their life. And they're hearing everything you say, but there's a barrier that has always stopped them adding one more sentence, going deeper with the stranger. And no matter how much they listen to this kind of advice, they still go through their life in this state of kind of getting through life, not connecting. Do you have any idea, A, is that true? Like, does that person exist and have you met them in your audience? And B, like, what is step one to starting to break down that barrier? Because I think I even feel a little bit, as you were speaking, I was thinking, yeah, like, why didn't I say that in the gym today? Like, what is it about me that meant that I just tried to get through and get back to the weights? It's like a bad habit, or?
I think there's a number of things. In your case, and I've experienced this, I don't know if you have this, but when you get into a position that is a lovely one to be in of relative power, right? Like people want to come on the show, they want to know what you're up to, they maybe want to go to the parties that you're going to. One of the ways to avoid having to constantly set and enforce boundaries is to shine less bright. And so I don't know if you feel this, but I notice myself not following some of my own advice these days. And when I reflect on why, it's because if I say that I have a YouTube channel and they say how many subscribers, and I say how many subscribers, then they want my phone number. Then they want my this. And in order just to circumvent all of that, I like work from home. I will shine less bright. And I realized this years ago when I was doing breakdowns and I was doing all of these famous people. I'm like, I'm going to do one on Justin Bieber because he was such a bright, excited young kid. And then I looked at him at the time, he was 16 to 18. He was on Jimmy Fallon and he was so flat. And I was like, why is he so flat? And then he cracked a joke and the audience, rah! It wasn't even funny. It was,
Oh my God.
And so if you get to a position where any sort of output from you calls in this just wave of attention and energy, people often shut that down, which is a sad thing. And I want to stop doing that. And
People shut themselves down.
yes, they shut
stop
themselves
making an
down
effort.
because then you have to have boundaries and you have to tell that person, hey, I don't give out my Instagram, or I don't want to trade numbers, or you have to find a way to navigate disappointing other people that are interested in having a deeper connection that you don't feel it with them.
Does that happen with like beautiful people as well? Because I imagine,
Almost certainly.
Do you know what I mean? I imagine they just get it all the time. Everywhere
Yeah.
they're going, people are
Yeah.
trying to connect.
Yeah. Well, and I think, in terms of things to watch out for, I didn't realize this because I do think it's not necessarily a good thing, but young women, I think, realize this as they hit puberty, that there's going to be people interested in you that don't really want to get to know you, right? They're interested in you because you're beautiful. They're interested in you for these other reasons. Same thing tends not to happen with young men. And so I got to 19 and I wasn't wanted in any of the locations that I was at, right? And